So excited to chat with my next guest. He's got a big fight coming up here against Daniel Pineda, UFC Fight Night, June 3rd. It is Bruce Leroy, Alex Caceres, back here on the program, or joining me here on the program, I should say. Alex, how are you?
I'm doing good, and you?
Can't complain. I'm not going to be fighting in a few weeks like you are. Look like you got a full camp for this one. When did you find out?
I found out, I would say maybe a week and a half to 2 weeks ago.
Okay. So kind of, well, I guess not quite a full, yeah, I guess a full camp a little bit. How long do you typically like to train for a fight? Some fighters don't want it too much in advance, and then obviously you don't want short notice either.
Well, it typically doesn't really matter to me because I'm constantly trying to just keep myself in shape and train year round, um, and then I feel like I should, just because being in the top 15, I feel like I have like a kind of like a funnel of opponents that I could possibly prepare for. So I generally know what I need to work on, and it's not necessarily like game planning against specific people, but more so like filling in the holes of my own technique and arsenal.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense for sure. And I know initially you were supposed to fight, I believe, March 25th against Nate Landwehr. He ends up getting booked for that UFC 289 card. Were you bummed out by that, or does it not matter? Because every fighter's different. I'm sure a lot of you just want to keep active, but I know Nate's also a pretty fun matchup too.
I don't know. I didn't even know. So I'm not really paying attention to all that stuff. I was just off on an injury, so I was just focusing on healing and getting back to training.
And I was going to ask you about that. Was this the right amount of time off, or would you want a bit more time off, or how did, tell me a little bit about the timing of this fight?
Well, no, I possibly could have taken something earlier. I healed up pretty good. I kept mobile and just kept active and actively healing it. And I was back in the game pretty quickly. So
yeah.
I was hoping to get into a fight a little bit sooner, but this is good. It gives me a little bit more time to train.
Yeah, and we're excited for this matchup. Daniel Pineda, obviously a guy who's going to stand in trade, and also is usually in a really entertaining fight as well. Did you know much about him before taking this fight, or was he one of those guys you had to look up after?
No. I always have to look up everybody, mostly everybody. I guess it'll be different, when I'm fighting, up in the rankings, if I start fighting up in the rankings. But usually I have to look up people. I don't watch the sport. I don't watch any sport, so I'm totally oblivious most of the time about what's going on. I'm usually caught up in other things at the moment.
Do you like that though? I know every fighter's different. Some fighters are obsessed with fights. They're watching every weekend. For you, I know you kind of separate that. Is that needed for you personally, just to kind of, not overdo things or overwhelm yourself? I know you live the martial arts lifestyle, but in terms of like, having other things outside of fighting, it's not all or nothing,
No, I do martial arts a lot. It's just, I guess specifically speaking to sport, fighting, or sports in general, or just watching TV and keeping up, with the stats and all that stuff, I just don't do it. That's all.
No, it eats up a lot of time for sure. Do you own a TV? I know some guys don't even like do that. They just like won't even have it in the house.
Oh yeah. I watch lots of movies, stuff like that. I play lots of video games and stuff like that. But other than that, I don't really watch, I guess day-to-day TV, like, I don't watch sports channels at all. I never really got into it when I was younger.
Yeah, no, fair enough, man. It's again, it's a lot to keep track of, especially with everything that's going on. So now that I'm sure you've had a chance to look up Daniel, stylistically, how do you look at this fight?
It's a good matchup. It's nothing that we haven't seen before. He's a tough guy. He has a good chin on him. He hits hard. He has some good tools to his game. So it's just going to be a good competitive fight, and just hoping for the best. That's all.
And you mentioned it there, man. You're a veteran. You've faced the who's who. You've been in the UFC for a very long time. When it comes to training, do you kind of focus more on your skill set and what you can bring to the table, and not so much on the opponent, just because you've kind of seen it all? You know what I mean?
I feel so. For me, that approach is a little bit, I guess, better. I'm just always trying to better myself and trying to get better at every aspect of my game if I can. It works better for me just because I feel that when I guess people consider my style to be somewhat awkward. So it, like, I guess it doesn't really matter if I try to prepare for somebody that he specifically fights like this, but then when he fights me, he changes up his game plan just because I have an awkward style. So if they're studying me, they're most probably not going to bring the same game plan as if they fight anybody else. So it kind of, it kind of, it kind of becomes detrimental to my game plan if I start game planning for people.
Yeah. Do you watch any tape or do you leave that to your coaches?
No, I watch. I watch. I guess him. I watch their fights. I watch all my opponents' fights. You know, I don't like study them necessarily, but I like to watch them to see like their style, what tendencies, what they like to do, simply like how they fight. And but for the most part, yeah, I usually leave it up to my coaches to handle most of that business.
Yeah. No, I know some fighters that won't watch any tape at all and they're just like take their coach's word and they go on autopilot. And then there's others that are the opposite. They're like every day I gotta watch something. So I always find that interesting, sort of hearing that point of view. Now, as far as training camp, who've been some of the main training partners helping you get ready for this fight?
Just the guys at my gym. You know, we bring in various people every now and again from other gyms as well. But for the most part, my training partner Enrico Coco.
Awesome. Well, that's good. Any up and comers, that you work with? I know sometimes fighters, you want to get that variety where you get, the pro guys, maybe some amateur guys. Is it a mix or is it, how do you sort of go about structuring your camp?
Well, no, I'm just training, man. I'm not necessarily focused on anything else at the moment. I opened up we opened up a gym not too long ago, so we're just trying to build the gym as well. So mostly just training out of there and just training with my coach and training partners.
How
But
is it working with the gym and then also getting ready for a fight as well? Has it been, manageable? How's all that going?
yeah, I've been doing it for the past couple of years. Hasn't been, I'm mostly, just focused on teaching some classes and managing. And so, I mean, I have a management team as well, so they help
Yeah,
me with all that stuff. And
that's great.
for the most part, I just focus on training and getting ready for fights.
What about making featherweight as far as the weight cut? I know as you get older, metabolism slows down a little bit. How have the cuts been for you as you're getting older?
Well, I mean, I walk around generally around one, like if it's like a heavy day, I've gotten up to 165, but
Okay.
usually I walk around like maybe 160 to 157. So cutting down the 45 is not a difficult cut for me.
Yeah. No, you kind of got it to a science. I imagine with how many fights you've had, it's kind of, you got it down to a science at this point, right?
All right, now I don't even think about it, man. I just
Yeah.
once we get to the hotels, the first day I eat whatever I want. The second day I just eat a little less, and I just train, and it comes off.
Good. Oh, that's
Yeah.
excellent. What do you normally eat in general? Everyone's kind of different when it comes to cutting weight or eating healthy. And like I said, you live the lifestyle, so I'm sure you're not a guy who's like, binging in between fights. What do you typically like eating as far as in camp?
Well, man, I eat a lot of stuff, dude. I
Yeah.
eat generally a lot. I don't really put too much emphasis on it. But I make sure that it's good stuff, of course. I usually eat plants, a lot of vegetables, fruits. Especially the closer I get to the fights, I try to eat more raw fruits and vegetables. When we're at the hotels, I'm literally, we're training like twice a day, and I'm eating, I think, like just spinach and beets mostly, and
Yeah.
pumpkin seeds, and yeah. But other than that, I really don't put too much emphasis on what I'm eating. I just make sure I usually have good food laying around my house, and my options are usually healthy anyway. So I just eat when I'm hungry.
Yeah. It's as simple as that. Do you eat any meat? You mentioned a lot of vegetables and fruits there. Do you eat meat as well?
Nope.
Okay. How long have you been doing that?
Um, I want to say for maybe 11 years, maybe give or take.
Nice. Okay. Because yeah, everyone's different. I mean, it's all in how your body reacts to it, and we hear all the stories of digestive issues and stuff. But if it works for you, I think if it's coming from the earth, it's probably good for you, right? Like as opposed to the processed stuff, right?
Yeah, just gotta. I feel like, yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good stuff. It works for me. Like you said, I haven't had any trouble with it, gaining weight or losing weight or putting on muscle or staying lean, staying active. It hasn't really affected and I've been doing it for nearly as long as I've been in the UFC, or
Yeah.
so it's been working out.
I'd say so. Yeah, you don't miss weight or anything. That's great. Who's going to be making the trip down there with you for the fight as far as your corner?
Well, my coach Enrico Coco and training partner, and right now I think my manager is going to meet me out there. My wife probably.
Good. That's awesome. And how do you see the fight playing out on June 3rd? How do you see it going down?
Well, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be a good fight. I feel like it's right up my alley. I like fights that get into the mix of it. So I feel I'm going to have some good fun. It's always going to be a good fight when I'm involved. So everybody should be entertained.
Yeah. Well, no, they usually are, man. It's you're never in a boring fight, so that's for sure. Okay, I want to talk about stuff outside of fighting because you mentioned it there. Got other interests. We'll start with the video games. What are you getting into right now? What are you playing?
I play a various amount of games, but I've been playing like competitively, like a game called For Honor.
Okay.
It's like a you ever play like Call
I
of Duty?
haven't. This is why I'm learning all this right now. Yeah. What's it about? Is it? And you said it's competitive, so I'm imagining you're playing online, right?
Yeah. Like you ever play like I guess like Call of Duty?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like it's kind of like that with knights and like samurais and Vikings and shit like that.
That's cool. Do you talk trash like online, or you like? Because some people like they get really,
Yeah.
especially kids these days. I feel like they're just used to that. Talking smack.
Oh yeah, man. Some of these kids are ridiculous.
It's a different generation, I think. Do people know that you're a UFC fighter, or do you kind of keep it anonymous?
No. I don't really know and bring it up.
Yeah. I was gonna
Well,
say they might not talk as much trash if they know you're a UFC fighter, right? So that would be a little bit different. And then you mentioned you watch movies. Anything good you've watched recently? Like what do you mainly get into?
oh man, I just recently rewatched The Cable Guy. It was a funny movie. We watched it last night. Uh, I've been watching a lot of series lately. I think we just finished that one that was called Sinner.
Sinner, okay.
Yeah, it's about a detective. It was a pretty good one.
Okay.
But yeah, like I like watching a lot of old movies, like 80s flicks or 70s flicks.
So I'm the same way, and I'll tell you why. Because when I was growing up, like there's a lot of movies that came out that you never saw as a kid, whether you were too young or whatever. So I go back and watch a lot of stuff. So when you mentioned Cable Guy, I was like, I've seen that movie before, but I'd have to go back and watch it to tell you exactly what happened because I don't remember every detail. Did it live up? Does it still hold up today, Alex? I got to know.
Yeah, man, it's hilarious because
Anything with Jim Carrey's good, right? So
yeah, Jim Carrey's always good, and I've rewatched it like a whole bunch of times. I like rewatching movies. I don't know why. Like sometimes my wife like doesn't understand, but I don't know. I just like rewatching movies sometimes, just retelling the story. I don't know. It's like reading a book twice.
yeah. Well, you like certain scenes. You know what? For me, here's an '80s movie for you. I think early '90s even. Beverly Hills Cop's like one of my favorite movies of all time. Like Eddie Murphy in the '80s. Find me a better duo of him and with when he was acting and stuff. To me, there's no one like him. He was incredible.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever seen Beverly Hills Cop?
Yeah, man, I remember that one.
Yeah, remember at the hotel when he has the scene where he's, he was trying to get the room and then he says he was a reporter for Rolling Stone and he starts making a scene. Do you remember that? Where and then he gets the room upgrade. Do you remember this?
I vaguely remember it. I would have to rewatch it. I haven't seen that.
If you go on YouTube, you could probably search the scene, but it's like one of my favorite scenes because he totally makes up the story about how he's a reporter, and then they mention that the hotel sold out, and so he makes up the story, and then the manager like realizes that he's in distress, and they end up getting him a room. So just very 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 good scene. So yeah, recommend checking that out. And man, we got to check you out June 3rd, UFC Fight Night. Alex, thanks for doing this, man. If there's anyone you want to thank before we get out of here, any sponsors, any social media, I'll give you the last word.
Oh man, I want to thank my team for helping me out at Zen Jiu-Jitsu, I'm sorry, Zen Ronin. And I also want to thank one of my sponsors, a clothing line that's also what is that word again for those caricatures that they
Oh, you mean like social media or you mean like you're talking like clothing company, right?
it's a clothing company, but they started just making clothes. But they were I forgot what they I'm sorry. Anyways,
Don't
Ken
worry.
Pie Panda.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the pants and everything. But other than that, no, it's gonna be a good fight. Thank you UFC for getting me a fight, and thank you for all the fans for watching.